This video will show you how to do every trick in Shredsauce, and in real life, but I wouldn't recommend taking it to the ski hill. First thing you gotta make sure you do is set up all your grabs and controls. I already made a video on this, so just click on the top right corner if you haven't done that. Now your controls and keybinds should be all set up. You can reference my control joystick at the bottom left corner. That relates to the flipping and spinning motion. Up and down, go front flip, back flip. Left, right, go left and right spin. Forward, right, forward, left, do misty rotations. Backwards, right, backwards, left, do cork rotations. These are directly connected to your arrow keys if you're on keyboard, so just reference it like you can only use 8 different spin types if you're on keyboard. Now one thing you won't be able to see is my grab and butter bar. So in that circle there that you see on the screen, there are all the grabs in a big circle that you can touch and change. So you can also do butters if you drag up from the crouch button, which is in the bottom right corner, and hold it and drag it up. You will then be able to do butters. First, I'll go over all the jump rotations, and then I'll go over all of the rail rotations. Skip to this point in the video if you only want to see the rail portion. So for cork rotations, which are a backflip and some sort of spin, there are a couple different things that you string together to do doubles and triple corks. There's basically cork threes, cork fives, and cork sevens, and cork nines. They all go into a trick to compose many different corked tricks. For misty rotations, which are front flips with spins, I usually only use Misty 5, Misty 7, and sometimes Misty 9 rotations. Misty 3 rotations are not as easy to use. Now for flat spin rotations, there's just the flat spin and then the normal spin that usually comes after. And last, the rodeos, which are also just a rodeo Lincoln sort of, and then just a spin. All of those rotations I was talking about will apply to going switch into jumps as well. They're not as easy for the flat spins and rodeos, but still possible. So just use the exact same rotation switch as forward. It will just look a bit different because they're obviously going different ways. Now for cork rotations. Cork 3 is just backwards and regular spin mixed like this. Now cork 7s, there's 2 different ways you can do it. You can do a 360 to a cork 3. I'll show you there. I don't like that as much as doing a upwards sort of 90, then doing a 360 while still feet in the air, and then bringing it down 90 to your feet again. Then last but not least, there is the cork 9. That's if you need to put a little bit more spin on it. I use this a lot for my switch cork 9s, where you just go and spin an extra 180 at the end of your cork 7. Now for Misty, you can throw frontwards and then spin while your feet are beside you as well, just like cork, and all of the rotations work. Some of them you will need a bit of Lincoln from the top left there, and it will bring you around to your feet a bit better, but mostly just same thing as cork. Throw forwards to the side, then start spinning once you're on the side, and then finish by throwing more forwards onto the side and to land to your feet. Another thing to think about while doing these tricks is that if you grab frontwards like a mute grab, it will be better looking while you're doing a misty. Also, using trailing grabs, which is when you grab with your left hand if you're spinning right, or your right hand if you're spinning left. I always use trailing grabs almost, so it just looks better. For the cork rotations, I like to use tail grabs and farther back grabs. Now for the switch corks and switch misties. So for switch corks, what you want to do is use the misty rotation if you're going forward. So frontwards to one of the sides, flip around so that you're more forward facing, and then do your trick like normal as you bring the stick back to the back part of the joystick, and then it will do the cork rotation like usual. Same with Misty, you want to start by throwing it back to the one side and then spinning, and then bring it frontwards to land the trick and do the rest of your rotations. Now, rodeo and flat spin are a bit different. Rodeo, there's a couple different ways you can do it. If you're on computer, you can tap quickly to the opposite side of your rotation, like to the right. Do the Lincoln that you'll need to do with that joystick at the top there that goes side to side, and then spin it the other way, because that's how you're supposed to do rodeo rotations. Flat spins, you throw the flat spin. I like to just pull back very far backwards and a little bit to the side. You might have to hold backwards and tap to the side if you're on computer, but it does that. And then once you bring it around upright during one of your flips, you just spin and don't stop spinning until you land. That's how a normal flat spin would go. So that is all the jump rotations I'm going through. One last thing that I'd like to tell you about is doing the cork 5s. You want to do a cork 3 and then Lincoln after. If you do that very well, it will look better than if you do a cork 3 and then add an extra 180 onto it. Just a side note. You may also be wondering, why aren't there any bios or underflip sort of rotations? That's because bio is more subjective, and if you want to know what it is, it's a frontward rotating, not inverting flip sort of rotation. It does depend a lot on what grabs you do. So if you do a tweaked safety, then it might work better than if you were using a blunt grab to do a nice bio. Underflips, it's just a 90 side flip 90. That's how I do it, but you can also do it many different other ways. So just figure it out for yourself with the bios and underflips. Now, while you're buttering into any tricks, you will just want to do a normal butter, and you will hit the lip at about a forward or switch rotation. So it shouldn't make a difference to your actual trick. It might make it look cooler, of course, and you can just throw the normal trick off of a butter. It doesn't make any difference if you butter into it or not. Now you have to put these cork and misty rotations together to do doubles and triples, because I've only shown you the single flip rotation variants of them. So if you want to do something like the dub 10, the single cork 7 rotation, and then after you've completed that, you will just do a cork 3. So it will be 2 flips and 1080 degrees. Same thing for double cork 14s. You just do a cork 7 into a cork 7. If you ever are wondering how to do any of these tricks, you can always look it up on the internet with a regular person skiing. It's the exact same way. It might look a little different because one's in a video game and one's not, but it should be very similar how to do each of the rotations. Just like if you were looking at this double cork 12, if you're going in switch, you will want to do the 9 into the 3. It's all just added up and try to make about an even amount of rotations every flip. Do a 720 one flip, then you will do as close as you can to a 720 the next flip, typically less. So 720 or 540, don't go 900. Now for the rail section. We'll start by how to get on rails. So if you're going in forward, you can choose either way to get on a rail. Try to make sure that the ends of your skis do not clip into the rail and they both fly over so it looks more realistic, and make the full rotation, which means landing sideways on the rail and not in a 50-50 grind. For going switch onto the rails, your character will be looking one way with its head. You should almost always spin that direction. It looks better, and in my opinion is the only way that you should do it, because nobody ever spins the opposite way and does a blunder. It's just not very common, and I wouldn't say that it looks good in this game. For buttering onto a rail, I have the exact same advice, so just make sure you're spinning the same way that you're buttering and that your skis don't clip through the rail. Now you should be on the rail, and there are a couple things that you can do. Over any kink, you can do a swap, 360 swap, 540 swap, doesn't really happen too often, or just a simple 180 front swap, back swap. So you'll want to do one of those at almost every kink, so from flat to down, or any gap that you jump from one rail to another, and it will look very much better than just flying through the air and not spinning at all. I would recommend swapping in the direction that your skis are scissoring. So on my character, it's very exaggerated because I have show all pose slots on. Would recommend that you put it on. If you don't, it's less obvious if you do a opposite rotation and you're scissoring the other way. So you can kind of go both ways. I like to either always go with the flow for my spinning on a rail, so just keep continuing to spin left or right on a rail, or if I choose to always pretzel. So you spin one way onto the rail, the first swap that you do, you spin the opposite way, then you turn back the other way on the next swap, and until the rail is over. Now that you've swapped and done all that, you can also do Lincoln swaps, which is using your Lincoln, and I would recommend using a grab. I always use the Japan because that's the best one for the Lincoln, but you do your Lincoln and swap. You can also throw a spin on there if you like, but Lincoln or cork swaps don't look too bad, so you can do those if you've got a large enough gap, typically over a transfer rail from one rail to another. Now you're going to be going off the rail. I always recommend spinning off the rail unless if it's a very cannoned rail and you can do sort of a cork or a misty or rodeo / Lincoln off. So if it's a down rail or flat rail and you don't want to do any flips off, always just spin the way, either the pretzel or the continuous way if you're doing that, or whichever way your skis are scissoring. For if you're going to do a flip or flip and spin like a cork or misty off, then I would recommend just doing one and then spinning as much as you can after that, just because you don't want to do a double off of a rail. It looks kind of bad in this game. So just flip, hold the exact same grab through the whole rotation, and just spin it around as much as you can. One thing that looks really cool while skiing is doing a back swap to switch. It's where you swap, do a back swap, and then pretzel to switch. It works well if you don't think you're going to have enough time to do a full 270 out, because just going 90 to forwards or 90 to switch doesn't look too good. So that's all the different tricks on jumps and rails that you'll need to know about Shredsauce. There are many different other things that you can do, but those are the main ones, and all of the other tricks are just variations of those tricks. Thanks for watching. See ya. Turn the lights out now. Now I'll take you by my hand you another drink. Drink it if you can. Can you spend a little time? Time is slipping away from us, no say.